Hello and welcome to today's topic, that is Strategy of Industrial Growth 1947 to 1990. In this chapter, we shall study about industry, importance of industry, factors responsible for direct participation of state in industrial development, industrial policy resolution, small-scale industries, their characteristics. Industry. Industry plays an important role in the context of growth and development of a country. It is considered to be a foundation stone to the economic development. For a balanced and complete development of the country, industrialization of the country is the need of the hour. Importance of industry. Epicenter of economic growth, source of mechanized means of farming, source of employment, imparts dynamism to growth process, growth of civilization, infrastructural growth, industrialization a sine qua non of growth. Now we shall discuss these points in detail. First point, epicenter of economic growth. As GDP rises, there is a structural transformation in the economy. Industry starts replacing agriculture as the engine of growth. This is because, unlike agriculture, industry produces a wide range of goods which the consumers would like to consume as their income rises. The rise in demand for agricultural goods consequent upon a rise in income is always very modest, because agricultural goods like rice and wheat are the necessities of life and have low elasticity of demand. Thus, industry replaces agriculture as an epicenter of growth. Second point, source of mechanized means of farming. Industry plays a crucial role in mechanization of farming. Use of machines in farming has become possible only owing to the growth and development of industry. Mechanization has caused an exponential rise in farm productivity. It is owing to mechanization in farming that India succeeded in producing enough food for the second most populated country in the world. Third point, source of employment. Industry is an important source of employment. This becomes significant when agriculture is already overburdened and the labor force is rising rapidly. With the rise in agricultural productivity, farming sector has released a large supply of labor force. It can be gainfully employed only in occupations outside agriculture. Industry plays an important role in this context. Fourth point, imparts dynamism to growth process. Industry imparts dynamism to growth process. This fact is supported with the observations. First, in the absence of industry, growth process would have been restricted to the production of food for survival. Second, industrialization has added new dimensions to human life. It has generated a wave of consumerism. Next point is growth of civilization. Urbanization has led to the growth of civilization. People become conscious of their quality of life. They work hard to achieve higher levels of education and skill. Culturally diverse societies are getting closer to each other. The world economies are merging into a global economy. Next is infrastructural growth. Industrialization has led to infrastructural growth in the economy. Industry tends to spread across different parts of the country. Due to expansion on infrastructure facilities such as means of transport and communication, banking and insurance, services, power, etc., both industrial and infrastructural growth are interlinked. The growth of escalatest the growth of the other. Lastly, industrialization is a sine qua non of growth. Growth process and industrialization are so intimately related to each other that industrialization is often taken as a sine qua non of growth, implying that growth occurs as and when industrialization spreads. It is a fact that most developed countries today are industrialized countries. Industrialization has emerged as an inevitable route to the process of growth. Factors necessitating direct participation of the state in industrial development. Following factors are there: lack of capital, growth with social justice, low inducement to investment. Firstly, lack of capital. Industrial development in India needed a big push, implying a large amount of capital expenditure. At the time of independence, Tata and Birla were the only established industrial houses in India. The requirement of capital for the country's industrial growth was far beyond the capacity of these industrial houses. Accordingly, it became essential for the state to achieve industrial growth through public sector undertakings. Second point, low inducement to invest. The private investors lacked inducement to invest. It was owing to limited size of the market. Limited size of the market was owing to the low level of demand. Level of demand was low because of low level of income. Thus, low income leads to low demand. Low demand leads to limited size of the market. That leads to low inducement to investment and ultimately low investment and low income. Third point, growth with social justice. The government realized that the objective could be achieved only through direct participation of the state in the process of industrialization, because it requires investment that generates employment rather than investment that maximizes profit. Concentration of wealth was to be discouraged, and public investment rather than private investment was considered as the best means. IPR 1956, Industrial Policy Resolution 1956. Threefold classification of industries: industrial concessions, industrial licensing. Industrial Policy Resolution 1956 was a clear declaration of the government on the leading role of the government in the process of industrialization. This resolution laid a roadmap of the second five-year plan. Also, it was a milestone of achieving growth with social justice. Licensing policy to promote regional equality. Licensing policy of the government was to promote regional equality. Private entrepreneurs were expected to establish industry in backward regions of the country. Accordingly, licenses were liberally issued for the backward regions rather than the developed regions of the country. Threefold classification of industries. Industries were classified into three categories. Number one, those industries would be established and developed exclusively as public sector enterprises. These include atomic energy, defense, and railways. Secondly, those which could be established both as the private and public sector enterprises. However, the private sector was to play only a secondary role. New enterprises were to be established primarily in the public sector. This category includes fertilizer industry, mining industry, etc. Clause 3. All industries other than in categories 1st and 2nd are left to the private sector. Industrial licensing. Industries in the private sector could be established only through a license from the government. The basic idea of licensing policy was to encourage industry in backward regions of the country. This was to promote regional equality. A license was needed not only for establishing a new enterprise, but only for expanding production capacity of the existing ones. This was to regulate the allocation of resources to different uses. The focus was to promote social welfare rather than private profits. Industrial concessions. The private entrepreneurs were offered many types of industrial concessions for establishing industry in the backward regions of the country. These concessions included number 1 point, tax holiday. That is, freedom from the payment of tax for some time. Secondly, subsidized power supply. Development of small-scale industry, a policy instrument to promote the goals of employment and equity. The process of industrialization had two broad dimensions: growth of large-scale industry like iron and steel, transport and communication to generate infrastructure facilities; growth of small-scale industry to generate employment opportunities besides social justice. A small-scale industry is presently defined as one whose investment does not exceed rupees 5 crore. At the beginning of planning, that is 1951, it was defined as one whose investment did not exceed rupees 5 lakh. The role of small-scale industry in achieving the goals of planning was underlined by Kave Committee in 1955. It underlined the significance of small-scale industries in terms of their three principal characteristics. Characteristics of small-scale industry. First, SSI are employment friendly, that is, they use labor-intensive technique. Small-scale industries are more labor-intensive, that is, they use more labor than the large-scale industries, and therefore they generate more employment. Small-scale industries absorb surplus labor by generating employment opportunities. These industries are good for our economy, which is a capital deficient and labor surplus economy. Second character, small-scale industry are equity oriented or equally oriented. Large-scale industries are often established close to the source of raw material. Small-scale industries, on the other hand, show locational flexibility because they can be established anywhere without considering the source of raw material, etc. These are distributed over the entire length and breadth of the country. It is therefore equality-oriented, leading to regional equality. Third feature is small-scale industry are equity-oriented, income equality. Small-scale industries require small investment compared to large-scale industry. Accordingly, it avoids concentration of economic power. Therefore, it promotes inter-equality. Small-scale industries can utilize small funds more efficiently and generate revenues to their investors. Equity is a sine qua non of socialistic pattern of society. So small-scale industries lead to socialistic pattern of society.